Good afternoon and welcome to the, 43rd episode of the Georgia Farm Bureau Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. Today's guest is going to join us later in the show. It's going to be Jefferson head coach Travis Noland. I'm excited to see what Jefferson's going to be bringing back this season in Class 5A, and obviously featured on their roster is going to be Sammy Brown, who made headlines this week when he finally committed to Clemson, a school that had been, since his freshman year when he was starting, kind of on the radar as a potential landing spot. Since then, he's turned into the #1 prospect in the state heading into this 2023 season, and it's just a huge jackpot signing for Clemson as they build a great defense, look to contend in the ACC, and are really, at this point, I think #4 in the national recruiting rankings for this upcoming class. Okay, good. I just got a quote from McFarland. We're also going to talk about the Corky Kell 7-on-7, of course. That's going to be next Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the following Tuesday. And then just wanted to point out the high school football season starts 10 weeks from today. That's pretty insane to think about, but it's true. At Kell High School, I think that'll be August 17th. The other thing, go to our Score Atlanta YouTube page. We interviewed Carver Columbus head coach Pierre Coffey yesterday, and we had a great interview right after with Juju Lewis, Carrollton's quarterback. He is the reigning National Freshman of the Year. We all know what he did last season. We talked about his offseason, the things he's been adding. I think it's a really good opportunity to get to know the type of player and dedicated quarterback that Juju Lewis is. His future is so bright. Thought he handled the interview incredibly well, and I couldn't be more impressed. I didn't get to kind of say in the interview just how I view him on how he stacks up. We kept it more just about what he likes to do, how he's been working pretty much since his youth football days. But what I had trouble articulating, what's so impressive about Juju Lewis is how he moves, not in the pocket, but you see a lot of quarterbacks scramble. They aren't in that position to just release the ball immediately. His technique is so good. His feet, I don't know what the quarterback terminology is for that. I guess just footwork in general, but the way he moves, it literally looks like a video game where he's moving laterally, he's moving back to buy time and create windows for himself. And you look at what he did last season, throwing for 530 yards in the state championship game where Mill Creek was able to score 70 points. They were just on a different level. But he said in the interview, he said, "Oh, yeah, well, I guess I didn't do too well because we lost the game." I was there. He played incredible. The throws he made were outstanding. And if not for him getting better throughout the entire season, that game would not have been close at any point. And he did actually keep them in striking distance. And we talked to Coach Lovelady after the game. He said if they didn't just keep scoring, and they knew if they got into a situation where it was a 2-score game with Carrollton having the ball, it wasn't over. They could have scored, gotten that onside, and he had all the confidence that Juju would be able to make those plays. I mean, a freshman quarterback that can handle key 4th-down moments. I mean, just the Colquitt County game had some 4th and 13s. The crowd's packed. They are getting pressure. They're trying to get him off his game, but he's so good at just dropping back, buying time, and then he knows where all his receivers are, and his arm strength and ability is just unbelievable. I think without question, he is the undisputed #1 prospect in that class of 2026. and I am excited to see what he's going to do this season. I think just how young Carrollton was last year, I think this offseason will be huge for them. They have a lot of pieces that they can work into the offense. I think with Caleb Odom, some other top targets, I think they're going to be even deeper at the receiver position. I think they'll be able to spread the ball out really well. And then they have a weapon with Bryce Hicks that can really help them move down the field, turn small plays into big plays, and then the way that Juju can just throw over the middle. Also, he was talking about, I think he packed on like 15 pounds, 15 to 20 pounds this offseason. I actually saw him during the NFL draft, and you can tell his base is really sturdy, I would say. It's like, I mean, you can tell he's added kind of power and that balance that it takes to be a great quarterback, and that's where all that weight has come. And I think his plan, if you watch the interview, he's packed the size on them before the season. He's going to try to just work on the speed and quickness and get himself ready to handle. But I just thought it was a great interview. I want to thank him again for coming on, and you can check it out. Everyone that watched it was blown away with just the maturity and what a great teammate he is going to be, and what a proud Trojan he is. I think that will also be something to watch. As a freshman last year, I mean, the quarterback is in the huddle, is on the sideline talking to his teammates, but Julian really understands the game now, and obviously his teammates know what he can do, so he's going to be able to be that coach on the sideline. If he thinks a receiver could have done something differently, I expect him to be able to go over there, work it out with the coaching staff, adjust in the game better. And Najee pointed out it is our most watched episode yet, over 100 views just on the site, and then on social media it's also blown up. So please go check that out. It's a great interview. And we didn't really get into where his potential landing spots are going to be. He's still young. He's got multiple years ahead of him, and I think that's another good sign. He's not really going on all these trips this summer. He has gone to a couple, understandably, early in June, but now it's just about hanging out in the community, getting his workouts in, trying to pack on a few more pounds, and then getting ready for July, where it's going to be the dog days of summer, and they're going to be getting ready for their season. And they've got some big games again, and they will be looking to defend that region title in what will be their second season in Class 7A. We're also going to get to see him at the Georgia Tech 7-on-7 with the Corky Kell. And what day is that going to be? Let's see. I think that will be on Tuesday, the first day, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll have the Corky Kell 7-on-7 story out today. We're working on team previews with the top players for all 80 that are participating. There'll be some great information in there. They have moved a couple things up, but the information will be in that article. The first meeting is going to be at 8:45 instead of 9, and it's going to be 30 minutes long. That's going to be Coach Key addressing the teams in the indoor facility. At 9:30, the teams will go to their respective fields. The action will start at 10 o'clock. Lunch has been, looks like, moved up to 11:30 and will be at the fields. The lunches will come to the teams. And then after the players eat and get a chance for an intermission, we're going to start the tournament at 1:30, and then that has pushed the championship game up to 5 o'clock from its originally scheduled 5:30. So it looks like we're trying to expedite the process just a little bit. All right, so let's go and see if any other changes happen with the pods. Okay, this would be the final day. Let's see real quick. Then the rules are going to be the same, and it's going to be completely on schedule. The only time there's a mercy rule is, I think, if they go up by 21 points, but all that does is, instead of there being time stoppages in the final 2 minutes, that's just going to be a running clock. So you aren't going to have the schedule affected by that. Offensively, a touchdown is 6 points. The PAT is 1. You can also choose to go for 2 if it's further back. I forgot what yard line. Interception is 3 points. Turnover downs is 2 points. There will be officials, obviously, at all these games, and definitely couldn't do an event like this without them. And we'll have all the coverage for that. It's going to be an exciting event for sure. Let's talk about Tech real quick, though. They've been making some serious moves in recruiting. I'm looking at the latest On3 recruiting rankings for the class of 2024. So this will be the senior class. What's amazing is, this is the first time I've seen it, I'm looking at the On3 national rankings. They have the average NIL calculated for each of the schools. And Georgia is number 1 right now with 17 total commitments with an average NIL of $158,000. Alabama is number 3 in the country. They have a higher NIL rating, though, in terms of the average, $195,000. That's pretty amazing. Clemson is number 4, and their average NIL is $96,000. So Alabama, $195,000. Clemson, $96,000. That's a huge difference, and I think it's the SEC factor in that case. So I expect Clemson, these other ACC powerhouses, to start matching the SEC, especially if you're one of the premier teams. We'll see Florida State, your Miami's up there too. Michigan, they've got a big class, and they're at 93. Florida has a great class coming in there at 167,000. So the SEC schools, looks like they really have that NIL backing right now. That's going to be a huge factor in how things go. And that is measured by the collective, I believe, not what the players also make on their own. Where's Georgia Tech on this list? Let's see. Okay, number 49. They only have 7 players signed at this point. That's why an event like this, Corky Kell, is so great. It's not necessarily some recruiting thing, but it is an opportunity for these big-time prospects to get to check out the campus. They're going to hear from some of the coaches, and, hey, you never know. I mean, you go there, you feel comfortable, you have a good showing out there, and it's like, hey, this is a pretty cool place, and Georgia Tech's been making big moves, but their average NIL is $19,000. So that's pretty crazy. So Georgia Tech, $19,000. Georgia, $158,000. So we'll see if that gap or trend closes in the coming years. But I just want to point that out. I thought that was an interesting perspective. So let's take a look at Georgia Tech just heading into next season. You're going to have Coach Brent Key. He went 4-4 last year in his first year. The last bowl game for Georgia Tech, 2018, that's obviously going to be their primary goal this season. They are returning 13 starters, 5 on offense, 6 on defense. I think the key, though, is offensively they return their entire offensive line. That will be significant for them. That'll be the strength of their team, and obviously completely crucial. Zach Pyron's going to be stepping in at quarterback as the projected starter. He is a 6'3" freshman. We've got Dante Smith at running back, and also looks like LaMiles Brooks, and he is he's the returning safety. They got a Texas A&M transfer, Andre White, to come in and be the leader defensively, and he has 1,200 career snaps under his belt. So that is going to be a huge addition for them, getting a SEC linebacker that has played multiple seasons and has that experience. Real quick, just to refresh on how Tech did last year, they opened the season against Clemson. They will not be doing that this year. They're going to be playing Louisville in Mercedes. I think it's in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Instead, that's going to be on September 1st. Last year, they opened their season with a big loss to Clemson. They beat Western Carolina, lost to Ole Miss. I think that's when the coaching changes came. They lost to UCF as well, and then started trending in the right direction. Beat Pitt on the road, beat Duke at home, had a tight loss to Virginia, lost to Florida State, beat Virginia Tech. That was a big win. Lost to Miami. Had a huge win over UNC, and then fell to Georgia in the season finale. Looks like in terms of scoring, 17.2 points per game. That's something they're going to want to obviously get up. And they do have, let's see, on special teams, Gavin Stewart is returning. He was 12 of 13 on field goals last season. So I think this is a big year for Tech. I'm excited to be on their campus next week, see what their coaches have to say and what the buzz is all about. But yeah, let's look at who they have signed at this point. But yeah, how wild is that NIL gap? 19,000 average compared to 156. So that's why this year is so huge. They've got to get competitive, get in that range of being able to compete for an ACC title. All right, so they have Trey Horn from Raven Gap. He is a 6'3", 190-pound versatile athlete. He just committed yesterday. A big addition for them. They have Jordan Boyd from South Carolina. Have a big edge rusher from Illinois. We talked about William DePape, 6'6", 225. Florida kid Demontre Gaston. Taj Butler from New Orleans. Santana Alo Tupulo from IMG Academy. And then, of course, Aaron Philo, the Prince Avenue Christian quarterback, who I think is, in my opinion, the highlight of that class. He's completely committed. He's going to go there to join his teammates and is just one of the most exceptional quarterbacks in the state heading into this season. All right, so let's go over what was I going to cover next. Oh, yeah, so on Friday, we already have our guest secured. It's going to be Seconders head coach. I think that'll be an interesting program to watch this year. They have Tony Elati. He's a former, I think he was at New Manchester, but he was Atlanta Falcons Coach of the Year a couple years back. He took over that Secondir program that's brand new. I don't think they're going to play a region this year, but they were super competitive. They had their first graduation last month, and he's doing really big things with them. I'm also going to have on Carver, Atlanta head coach Darren Miles. That should be very enlightening. Carver has given itself one of the most difficult schedules in the state this upcoming season, especially as a 3A team. They're going to be playing Calhoun in the Great Atlanta Bash. That'll be the first time the teams have ever met. Calhoun's absolutely loaded. Have obviously a track record, and then Caden Williams, their running back, has been blowing up, and they run such an incredible offense with Coach Stevenson. And then we're going to have Trinity Christian head coach Kenny Dallas on. I'm excited about that. Thought Trinity Christian was faced with a pretty steep challenge last year because they had to go from Class A private to Class 4A. They lost pretty much like their entire starting lineup, but then were really successful, earned a playoff seed out of the toughest region in 4A with the LaGrange, Troop, Stars Mill, and Whitewater. And then we're also going to have on, who was the other coach? I think I had one more, but yeah, we have those coaches lined up for tomorrow. And then next week's schedule will obviously be different with the 7-on-7. Okay. Chase Morrison. All right, we have breaking news. Chase Morrison from Roswell has just committed to Virginia. And it looks like Virginia held their camp this past weekend, or maybe it was even yesterday. He's an edge rusher. He is a 3-star. And let's see. Says, I looked over at my mom and said, I'm going to commit. It just feels right. It feels like home. I don't need to see any more schools. That's what he said after signing or committing on Wednesday. Said he actually had planned to take more official visits. He hadn't set them up, but was planning to. But after the visit, it sealed the deal for him. It was on his radar before the official visit. A lot of attraction came because of defensive end coach Chris Slade. Morrison loves that Slade has NFL experience as a player. He's also a former star at Virginia. Feels like that combination is huge for him to be a position coach. So he said, I've been heavy on Virginia ever since I first talked to Coach Slade. It's a good conversation. He holds the sack record there at Virginia and also got 50-plus sacks in the NFL. He's got what I need to get to the league and the best and be the best that I can be. So that is significant. I think Roswell is poised to have an incredible run in 6A this year. They fell in a tight game to Gainesville in the semifinals. Very easily could have won that game. Their only other loss was to Milton early on. That's going to be one of the biggest games in the state this year. Milton in 7A, Roswell in 6A, but they have one of the best rivalries anywhere. And that's just amazing to see just how many college prospects Roswell is cranking out, and that is one of the latest right there. Virginia is coming off a 3-7 record in the ACC. Sorry, they were 1-6 in the ACC, and it looks like they are returning 3 starters offensively and 8 defensively. So that's significant. And so they have a lot of seniors on this defense this year. I think he's going to have a chance to compete once he gets to campus and this current class graduates. So that's exciting news right there. And we've really seen this last month be super busy. I mean, in the past, kids used to – all right, when I say the past, let's go back to 2010, 12, 13, 14. That was before there was 2 signing days. There wasn't an early signing period. So you'd get kids starting to announce their commitments kind of October, late in the year. And then obviously on signing day, a lot of them. Well, then you bring in the early signing period, and now it's starting to become more year-round. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. Now it literally never stops. And June is obviously going to be huge with all these official visits. But what I also find interesting is you don't really see the rising juniors or rising sophomores announcing commitments. I mean, very few. Yeah, they're picking up offers, but you aren't seeing them commit yet. And that's something we did used to see. If you're a sophomore that picks up a big offer, you're going to commit on the spot. You might change your mind later on, but usually not. But now it's about getting the offers, staying in touch with the coaches through the process, seeing how your career goes, seeing if you can pick up another offer. But really, it's all about the rising seniors, and we're going to see a lot more of that for sure. So that will be exciting. And then let's go back to these national rankings. Let's see where Virginia is in terms of their NIL. So they're at 18,000 average. Virginia Tech is 48,000, and they have the number 63 rated class right now. And they have 6 players signed, so that's interesting right there. But yeah, this is going to be a monumental season for college football with this new NIL landscape and all the transfers we've seen. Obviously, the coaching also. But let's take a look at Clemson, though, because we're going to be talking about Sammy Brown in a sec. So he's obviously the highest rated player in this class, or the class of 2024. So yeah, he committed. That would have been on Sunday. Oh no, sorry, Monday. Today's Wednesday. They also got a commit yesterday from a receiver out of Texas. That's Bryant Wesco. He's the number 6 rated receiver in the country and the number 1 player in his state. I think that's, yeah, according to 247 Sports. Number 9 in the nation, according to 247. So they land a huge receiver prospect the day before, or the day after they land Sammy Brown. They also, they landed a tight end from, let's see, Marion Central Catholic, 6'5", 233 pounds, and he has an NIL value of $116,000. They have Sammy Brown at $298,000 on the top of this recruiting class. So if you want to know how much the top-rated defensive player in the country is worth, there it is right there, nearly $300,000. Noah Dixon's also in this class. He's a safety out of Troop. His NIL value $65,000 right now. He is the number 33 senior in Georgia. Also, Champ Thompson out of Meadow Creek. He is the number 38 ranked player in the state. They got running back David Ezio Mume from North Cobb, 6 foot, 195 pounds. And then I think that's the only Georgia guys in that class. Oh, yeah, Heaven Brown Schuler out of Pace Academy. NIL value of $78,000, and he's the number 7 ranked defensive lineman, according to Rivals, 6'3", 300 pounds. So Clemson, I mean, they are really making moves. I think the big question is just going to be about what's their offense going to look like. Can they have a quarterback that's going to be able to handle the moment? I mean, in college, to win that national championship, you've got to have either a defense like Georgia had last year or just an exceptional quarterback. I think Georgia, the TCU matchup didn't really show that trend, but obviously the Ohio State game did in the semifinals, where it took Stetson Bennett playing outstanding, the defense playing incredible, just to come away with a victory when Ohio State was pretty much in control the entire time. Let me look real quick at, Georgia Southern. We talked about the Eagles yesterday on the show. I'm just going to go over it real quick. Big thing to watch with Georgia Southern, they're switching up their offense, going from the triple option to the air raid. That's going to be under head coach Clay Helton. They have a ton of transfers. J.C. French is coming in. I think he played at Blessed Trinity back in the day. If I remember, he went to Memphis to play quarterback. They got Colton Fitzgerald also, who transferred in. And then Davis Brin, who threw for 5,400 yards and 35 touchdowns at Tulsa. Georgia Southern also had 4 transfers from Kentucky. And then the key to that is going to be the ongoing rivalry with Georgia Southern and Georgia State. You look at all the talent that's playing in Georgia right now. If these programs, and we'll be talking about Kennesaw State too, but in terms of the Sun Belt, Georgia Southern, Georgia Southern and Georgia State creating that annual rivalry, that's going to be huge for the recruiting. Georgia and Georgia Tech, obviously, Georgia Tech's going to be trying to close that gap. And then you have Georgia's kind of like the central hub of college football where all of it's going down. And I think you're going to see the opportunities for athletes coming out of Georgia is going to be significant. And that's going to add to their value in the NIL, and it's only going to proliferate from there and just keep blowing up. But let's go ahead. We're going to take a quick break before Coach Noland comes on and thank our sponsor, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are our Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. So, yeah, going on right now, and the reason I only had one guest on today, it is the Atlanta Falcons are hosting their annual high school coaches huddle. It's going on actually right now from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a great event. I've been there before. Basically, they close off attendance for everyone but the high school coaches. They get an exclusive look at OTAs, and then afterwards they meet with the Falcons coaching staff, and they go over offensive schemes, defensive, and just really it's like a coaching clinic with great access just to talk to the local coaches. And so, let's see, head coach Arthur Smith is hosting the annual high school coaches huddle at the Flowery Branch training facility on Wednesday, June 7th. It's going on right now. Every coach that attends gets the opportunity to view OTAs and hearing from the coaches on the cutting edge tactics, schemes, and fundamentals going on in professional football. This event has gained popularity since its introduction and attracts more than 200 coaches in its previous years. In order to maintain the tradition and bond with Georgia high school coaches, the Falcons even adopted to a virtual format in 2020. This year's Coaches Huddle returns Falcons HQ and offers an up-close and personal experience ahead of 2023. So I think that'll be interesting. I know the coaches enjoy that. And when we have Coach Lottie on tomorrow, we will ask him about how it went. Let's just look at the 7-on-7. Some of the players that are going to be there will have these lists out. But on my day, we got Jackson, Atlanta. Ricky Dorn, he's a 2025 wide receiver who's first-team All-Region and an All-State honorable mention. You also have athlete Messiah Scandrett. He is a rising senior and was a first-team All-Region linebacker. That's for Jackson, Atlanta. Pope, they struggled a little bit last year. They do have a new head coach, though, coming over from Centennial, a former alum. That is, I cannot think of his name right now, Sean O'Sullivan. And a couple of players that stood out. It's going to be John Stutzer. He is a junior. He's a dual sport athlete, and he was an all-region honoree last year at the receiver position. See how he stacks up against the competition. And then linebacker and tight end Nick Chow. He was also all-region last year. So I think those are two players for sure for Pope. If they're going to have a more competitive season, those guys with the experience are going to have to step up. Carver, Atlanta, man, they lost so much from last year's team. Bruce Bowen's their quarterback, multi-year starter. A bunch of guys that Aquantis Clemens, a 4-year starter on the defensive line. The school is valedictorian. But they do have a couple young prospects I was interested in. Running back Jarquavius Bryant. We saw him get action last year. Coach Miles was really confident in him. We will be talking to Coach Miles tomorrow. And then Quintus Adams, linebacker that I think he's probably going to be the leader of the defensive side of the ball this season. And then for Christian Heritage, I think they're in Class A Division I, possibly Class 2A, but Carter Triplett, he started as a sophomore for them last year, had a great season. And then running back and outside linebacker Jalen Gay, he was one of the team's leading tacklers and also top running backs. And they do replace their leading back last year, who I think had about 1,200 yards and 20 touchdowns. So Jalen Gay, he's poised for a big season, and he's only going to be a junior. But we're going to have all those updated. Let's see if we have Coach ready to go. Okay, we don't have Coach Noland yet. All right, let's go over Jefferson's season real quick.
You got me?
Oh, yeah. Coach, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for coming on. So just wanted to ask, just how is the off-season gone? Got to Jefferson. You guys had your kind of 5A debut last season, but, I mean, what's been the overall focus this off-season?
Well, I mean, we've had a good off season. We've tried to get stronger physically and, just continue to improve on the fundamentals of being a better team overall. And our guys have done a good job through, the off season and spring practice, and we're off to a good start this week in the summer.
Absolutely. And I know you guys had a ton of multi-sport athletes during the spring. I mean, how much did that impact you just in terms of evaluation, or were you able to get the large part of them out there?
No, we had most of them out there. Our goal this spring during spring practice was to try to develop some of the younger players that are going to have to be our depth on Friday nights. We got a lot of sophomores that are going to have to fill some critical roles in providing us depth. So, we know Sammy Brown and some of those guys that played for a couple of years here can play, and we were trying to develop some of those other guys that need to be role players throughout the spring practice.
Yep, and I know I think you guys just had graduation kind of last month. I know that's probably emotional for that senior class. Just what can you say about just that class of 2023 and just how they kind of came together, battled through adversity?
Well, they were a great group. Anytime you go through change in life, it's not easy, but especially for young people. And for them to have to go through a coaching staff change as a senior, wasn't easy. And then, all the changes within how we do things and the structure. But they handled that really well. And then we had the tragedy mid-season, and that was such a difficult time and a difficult process for everybody that was involved in our program. And they showed great courage and did an unbelievable job of working through all that. And, we felt like we were playing really good ball through the last game. And then we didn't feel like we played our best in the first round of the playoffs and got beat by a good football team. But can't say enough about that senior class and what they did to establish themselves in this program's history and set a great example for our guys to follow and move them forward.
And then how would you say this year's team will look offensively compared to last year? You're going to replace the quarterback, but just in terms of schemes, is it pretty much going to be the same?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to change a whole lot. Hopefully, because we're not changing a lot, we can be better, because last year it was such a drastic change from what they had been doing here for several years when running the triple option, and had a lot of success. So moving to a more open pro style type offense was a big change, and so hopefully we can continue to get better and be more productive offensively.
Yeah, it went from the triple option with Malachi Starks. You had Max Aldridge last year at quarterback. What's the quarterback position looking like this year?
We'll see. We feel good about who we got, competing for that position, and I feel like that we'll be fine there. Well, there's a lot of other places and holes that we've got to fill that concern me more than the quarterback position at this point.
Then you have three sons, including Zeb. I know he went on to play in college, and he's into coaching now. Just talk about how that relationship is, just being able to talk coaching, and then what you expect from him this season at South Carolina.
Well, he's not at South Carolina.
My
Actually, he
bad.
thought he was going to go into Michigan all spring long, and then at the last minute that didn't work out. So he's going to be here helping us at Jefferson this fall, and we're excited to be able to have somebody with his experience and what he'll bring to our staff. So he'll be here.
That's awesome.
My middle son Abe is doing well in the construction world. He went and got his degree in construction management. He's working and just had a baby, and he's doing well. My youngest son, I just got back from seeing him out in South Dakota. He's playing at South Dakota School of the Mines, and so they're all doing well. I'm very blessed, and football is a very integral part of everything that we do in our family.
Absolutely. And well, speaking of football families, we got to talk about Sammy Brown a little bit. I know he was relieved to commit to Clemson. That's a huge get for the Tigers, a huge opportunity for him. Just what does that mean for him to be done with that process? Just being able to go out there is just such an accomplished multi-year starter.
On my phone, I apologize. Sammy, he is like the way the world's been lifted off of him. That's a tremendous burden on anybody. It's a blessing, but a burden to go through, the recruitment process at that level and the stress and the strain. And, his family, Coach, his dad, Michael Brown, is working for us, and so he was, very involved with the day-to-day recruitment process, way more than I was, and so I think they felt good as a family and felt good about his decision. Sammy's a unbelievable kid with a great faith, and he told me that he'd prayed long and hard about it, and that he had no doubt where he wanted to be, and he was going to go ahead and make that decision and not waste anybody else's time taking official visits.
Yeah, and when I try to compare Sammy Brown, just the time I've been covering high school sports, his combination of speed, size, and strength specifically, the only player I've seen putting up numbers like him with the rest of the skill sets is Nick Chubb. And I mean, what I've seen with his numbers are pretty impressive, but we have actually a clip of him cleaning 405. Just wanted to get your reaction to that and then kind of describe what he's like in the weight room just on a daily basis. So no wrist straps, just 405. I don't know many high school juniors that are throwing up weight like that.
No,
So have you seen a stronger player in high school than Sammy Brown?
I have not. You ask about his work ethic in the weight room. I would say consistency is the biggest word you can use with him. He comes to work every day. He's never too high, never too low. He just works extremely hard, and he's a very focused kid. He's very mature. Not a lot of silliness or anything like that from him. He comes to work every day, and he provides great leadership within our program.
Yeah, and just as a coach's son too, I know he obviously understands the game, studies it really hard. Started as a freshman, comes over to Jefferson. I mean, just watching him defensively, he can cover well. He can come down and hit. He's hard to block. He's able to contribute offensively. What kind of role do you expect from him this season? Is it trying to limit his touches at all, or is Sammy just out there to win and he's going to want to play both sides and just do anything he can to help the Dragons.
Yeah, he's going to do anything he can to help the Dragons, and I think we've got to do a better job of helping him. He was playing well over 100 snaps a game last year. He got a little dinged up with an ankle, and we couldn't keep him out. But he just, early in the season especially, we've got to try to take care of his number of carries and touches offensively, and we feel like that is as explosive as he is. Limited touches might equal more explosive plays from him rather than touching it 40 times. If he only touches it 20, 15 of those might be really positive plays. So that's our job as coaches, but I know he's one of the most, willing and able to do players I've ever coached. Whatever we ask him to do, he'll do, and look forward to trying to get him the ball in different ways this fall.
And then talk about just the lines of scrimmage, offensive and defensive line. Just what have you seen from those units just working together this offseason, just that toughness that's going to be so necessary, not only for just representing the Jefferson brand, but just competing throughout this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the biggest difference, I think, in 5A football and 3 or 4A football from where we were at Oconee is just the size of the line of scrimmages are tremendous. And we don't have a huge group of linemen. We just got average size linemen, so our goal with them all off-season has been to try to get them stronger, get them to play with their hands and a good pad level. And so we feel really good about the guys we got. We got several guys that we think are going to contribute, and we look forward to see them really develop this fall because that's, unfortunately in the summer, for the guys that play skilled positions, they can get a lot of work and get a lot better. It's really hard sometimes for those linemen because there's no contact. So it'll be interesting to see and watch those guys progress throughout the summer and the fall.
Yep, and you guys have a tough Region 8 and 5A. You're going to be playing Alpharetta, Wren, St. Pius, and Oconee County, your 4 non-region games. I think what stands out just with those 4, it's like Alpharetta, that's a really big team. They've got a ton of size. St. Pius, so well coached. Wren's a powerhouse. Oconee County, that's going to be a huge game, obviously. It's a former school. So I think those 4 games right there, that's a great way to prepare you guys for the region.
No, I agree. It's I've always believed in playing a really tough non-region schedule. And we've got that for sure. Alpharetta is loaded with Division I players all over the field, and like you said, they're huge up front. So that'll be a tremendous challenge. We also scrimmage Marist, to try to spend some time on the triple option before we get ready for St. Pius because St. Pius is such a difficult team to play year in and year out. And then, of course, Oconee was in the semifinals last year, and I know all about their program and how well coached they're going to be. And so Wren had a coaching change, so we'll be, interesting to see the differences there from the team we played last year, but they had some really, really good players. So hopefully after going through those 4 games, we'll have a good sound base and know where we are heading into the region schedule.
And so you will be going to Wren, but, I mean, other than that, it doesn't look like you guys are going to be having to travel too much. A lot of the games are pretty close. So is that kind of something that –
and that's good. That's good, but I also like, at Oconee we went to Thomasville. I like to make a long road trip early in the season if you can, just so that if you have a chance to make the playoffs and have to do it, you've done it. So that's what we'll sort of use the Wren trip for, even though it's just an hour and a half away. Hopefully it just helps you learn how to travel as a team because every year your team's different and how they handle those road trips is always different.
And then last question, what can you say about Sammy Brown's little brother? Just any role he might play this year, where he's at physically?
We'll see. I'm an old school guy, and he's got to earn his way. What we use here is get to the turf field because our younger guys practice on the grass field. And do I think he has the ability? Yes. Do I think he will eventually, yes, but he's got to go through the same process as every other freshman that walks into our program, and that's what he's doing. He's doing it with a great attitude, but I do think he's going to be a great player.
Yep, that's Max Brown. So we'll be watching for that. Well, Coach, thank you so much for for joining the episode. I hope you guys have a great rest of the off season. We look forward to seeing the Dragons back out there in 2023.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
You bet. All right, so there goes Coach Noland. One more time with their schedule. They're going to open up against Alpharetta. That was an incredible game last year, a 47-46 thriller, one of the best week one games around the state. Alpharetta has a ton of talent returning. They will be replacing their quarterback. No more Ben Guthrie, but the size, that'll be a huge matchup. And then with Ashton Moore on the defensive side, the rising sophomore, the linebacker, him trying to tackle Sammy Brown in that matchup, that could be really outstanding football to watch. And then Wren, South Carolina, he mentioned they have a new head coach. They will be traveling to that game. They won 56-28 last year. St. Pius, he mentioned they run the triple option. They won that one 23-0 last year. And then the Oconee County game, we televised that one. It was a defensive struggle, but still an incredibly entertaining football game that came down to the wire, and Oconee County won 9-7. That's Coach Noland's former school, where he led them to, I believe, 3 straight finals appearances. And then the region, it's all going to be pretty local to the Jefferson area. It's going to be Clark Central, Winder Barrow, Flowery Branch, Loganville, Heritage Conyers, and Eastside. Clark Central, great defensive team. Winder Barrow, great defensive team. Loganville had an incredible season last year as well. I think they started 6-0 or 7-0 and were one of the better defensive teams in the state. So I think it's a really tough region. Points might be hard to come by in a lot of these matchups, but then that's going to prepare all the teams that come out of it for the playoffs. And then the playoff loss he was talking about last year was to Cass, 27-17 in the first round. Cass was actually the number 4 seed heading into that matchup, but obviously one of the most dangerous 4 seeds that were in the playoffs last year, coming out of that stacked Region 7 with Dalton, Calhoun, Cartersville, Hiram, and obviously Cass. So there you have it. It's going to be a just outstanding opportunity for Jefferson. They've got the number 1 prospect in the state with Sammy Brown. He's throwing up 405 pounds on power cleans. He's going to be tough to stop, but can the teammates around him make his job easier and step up and help get Jefferson deep into the playoffs this year? But that's it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins at 2 o'clock. I'll be back on Friday. Go to scoreatl.com, check out our latest stories. We'll have the 7-on-7 update and then our YouTube page for the interview we did yesterday on Underrated and Overlooked with Juju Lewis. But we'll be back, and thank you for joining us.